Tan, and today I want to talk a little bit about all things photography, especially talking about brand loyalty. And why do so many photographers swear by Canon, Sony, and or Fujifilm, and what makes switching brands such a big deal? And let's talk about it. Let's talk with the basics. What exactly is brand loyalty? It is about personal preference, tech specs, emotional attachment, or just sheer habit. For many, it's a mix. You can buy one lens, then another, and then 1 minute you're locked in and you're comfortable with that ecosystem because that lens that you shot with at a wedding, you shot with, for a family event, that gave you that emotional attachment, and it gets hard to leave from it because that gave you the sense of feeling that if you switch over to a different brand, you won't get the same exact feeling. And you know, camera brands like especially Nikon and Canon have been in a business for a very long time, and so has Fujifilm as well too. And I think Canon has a huge amount of followers because of their very legendary DSLR cameras that they had in the years past, especially the 5D Mark Mark IV, which is a fantastic camera, and still have a lot of friends who still use that camera for professional wedding work because they can't seem to let it go. And like I said, that emotional feel, that emotional inspiration that brings out to them, that's why they're keeping that DSLR until it breaks. And then they'll eventually, get to mirrorless. But as of right now, they're content and they love what they're doing and they love those cameras. And I don't blame them. And it took me a while to make a switch myself as well too. Um, so I want to say like a lot of people who are loyal to a specific brand um, has very specific criteria when it comes to why they're so loyal to this particular brand. It could be anything, but majority from what I see of what I read online is mainly just sheer specs. This camera has 61 megapixels. This camera has 45 megapixels, but the 61 megapixels, you can crop in like crazy, but it doesn't have a stack sensor. Then this one has a 45 megapixel, but it's a stack sensor, faster readout, 8K recording, 4K, 120 frames per second, 6K, a 60. So it's like all these kinds of specs and all these, things is in a camera. And to me, you know, I go by emotion, okay? I go by how it feels and what inspirations that this camera can inspire me to do with my photography work. Because I can have the best camera with the best specs, with everything that I have in the camera that I've always wanted. But if I can't hone down my skills and if I can't utilize it to its full potential, then it's just a spec heavy camera that would never be able not sorry that would never be able to shine fully to its full capabilities. And I think but that's just for me. Okay, I can't speak for any other photographers out there that just driven by just pure specs. I have a lot of friends, like I said, who still use older cameras, like the X-T1. That I believe was only 16 megapixels, and they still do street photography with it, and they freaking love it. And I produce some phenomenal cameras. I mean, some phenomenal photos. But I do come across every so often, just recently, I came across a few channels who either are sponsored by a specific camera brand to try out their brands and or have been using a one particular brand for a very long time, and they are now switched over to a brand that they've never used before. And I felt like some of these people who comment on their pages are like kind of attacking the original poster about it because why are you switching? You're unloyal, you're betraying us, and so on and so forth. But I'm like, why can't we, or even yourself, why can't any of us have choices that we want to use other camera brands? Like, we're in a day and age where every single camera that you buy in the last 5 years or even 10 years has been phenomenal cameras, and you can't go wrong with any of them. That's why companies like B&H and K&H always has an influx of inventory, different types of cameras, because people are now buying older cameras, switching into newer cameras, and it's just a big cycle of renewing and refreshing your gear. But I feel like having that sense that you have choices to go with A, B, C, and D rather than just A or B or just A and B and back and forth. It's boring. You want these you want these brands to have a sense of urgency when it comes to us as the consumer. We tell them what we want, we tell them what we need, and things that we like, things that we don't like, for them to get more competitive. And with competitiveness, it can portray better results in product production and more creative way of creating a better camera. And that way, everyone wins in this world, and not just one particular brand is killing it and the other brand is lagging behind. Um, and I see that some of these creators are making videos and doing shorts and writing a blog on why they have to explain almost in like an apologetic way of, I'm sorry that I'm leaving this camera brand to go to a different camera brand. I don't think people should do that. And I think that having a blindsided like loyalty to a particular brand is not good, because sometimes branching out is a very good thing, and it kind of opens up and it kind of changes your philosophy and your view of what different cameras and different tech or different color signs can help you with your photography work. Um, like for me, for example, went from Sony, and then last year I traded in one of my cameras to get the X-T5. Took the X-T5 out for a wedding shoot, shot the whole wedding with the X-T5, went home, edited the photos, and I just felt super emotional, because I felt like this these photos that I'm taking, the images that this camera's producing, it's making me feel emotional, like as if it was my personal wedding. It was like my wedding. And with Sony, I never felt that way, even though I love Sony and it's a fantastic camera. So Sony brands are just simply amazing. But to me, it's a tool, and it feels more like, you use it professionally, everything's all business, and that's it. And it was never really that fun for me. It did give me a sense of reliability in terms of, yes, I can produce phenomenal photos with the camera. I can rely on it to work the way it's supposed to on wedding day, and I can rely on their autofocus on nailing down the shots that I needed to nail, and those are the things that I needed to do in order to keep my business flow going and keep everything well. But at the same time, it's it's not inspiring me. It's not motivating me to, on my day offs, to bring my camera, go to the city, take photos of this, take photos of that, and I found my creativity mindset dwindling a little bit. So, like I said, when I took that photo with the X-T5, the emotions came out. I loved it, and I knew right then and there that I had to make the switch right away. So last year I went full blown, sold all my Sony gear, and went straight into Fujifilm, and I've never looked back. And then a lot of my friends were just questioning me, why? Why are you moving away from Sony into Fujifilm? And I had to explain something. Hey, like, I'm not loyal to any system. I respect every single system, because every system has its own niche quirks and specific features. And if I could, I would have one of each brand at my house if I had that money and use it for specific different shoots. But I've come to grow an emotional attachment with the Fujifilm system, especially with the lenses that I'm using and the colors that it's producing. And especially my recent trip to London with my wife, we had a fantastic time, and I was able to move the camera around, take any pictures that I want, and what it produces and how it felt. I always keep looking back at those pictures and bringing back that emotion about how much fun we've had. And I've done the same thing in the past with Sony, but it never gave me that sense of emotion. Never gave me that sense of, wow, this is what I remembered. Although it gave me a little bit of it, but it didn't give me to the point where I felt like it brings out more to what it's supposed to be. So, to end this video, I just want to say that camera loyalty is not a bad thing. Um, camera loyalty is, a good thing in some sense where you want to, keep utilizing the brand that you like because it produces what you love. And unfortunately, for a lot of people out there, I'm not saying everyone, but there are certain people out there who are only driven by pure specs. So that could be a hit or miss because, like I mentioned before, you can have the best or highest megapixel sensor on your camera, but if you don't take your time and you don't take your emotion, and you don't take your feel into the camera system and utilizing it to its full potential where it could truly shine, then all of those specs truly means nothing. It's just there, and some of the specs that it offers might never even been touched. Like for example, for me, I bought the XH2S because I like the fact that it's a stacked sensor, and every so often I did a lot of sports photography, and for that reason I went with the XH2S because of that, to have a faster readout and limit the rolling shutter. If I wasn't doing sports photography here and there, or most of the time, then I would have went with the SX20, which is the little brother to this camera that has pretty much every single video specs that this camera has to offer. The only difference is not weather sealed, which is important to me, and it's not and it doesn't record. I'm sorry, it doesn't record it in 120 frames per second 4K, but it does 60 4K, and also it's not a stacked sensor. But other than that, I would love to have the XS20 for my videos. Maybe one day I'll get it, and but yeah. So I just hope that people are just try to be kind to one another and not try to take each other's heads off because they don't use the same brand that you use anymore. Remember, options are good. We need this in this industry. We need those options. We need a subdivision to a division to everything that takes care of particular different niche style of photos that we want to use it for. So if your favorite photographer or favorite YouTuber or anybody you follow does not align with the same brand that you align with, just don't give them a hard time. Expanding is good, and change is good. And sometimes you have to change to get better at certain things, to be more creative, to change your mind, to refresh everything that you've learned, and you put the effort into it. And sometimes new is very good. So I suggest you try to do the same. If I know that you are super loyal to a specific brand, go rent a different camera one day. Go rent like a Nikon or even a Leica or a Hasselblad. Try it out for a weekend and see if you like it or not, and see how it produces specific, images compared to what you have. And you'd be surprised of how the subtle changes could change you emotionally. And when a camera is right for you is when it moves you emotionally, not just the specs. Hope you guys have a great night and take care.